So when asked, Henry Fonda he was quoted to say that his 3 favorite movies of himself were Grapes of Wrath, 12 Angry Men, and the Oxbow Incident. So I was like, what's the Oxbow Incident? I must see this now. And I don't regret doing it, but I do have some points here. The Oxbow Incident was filmed in 1942, and it was shelved because it was considered not cheery enough for wartime films. It was a downer, it was a drama, and people were like, why would you even want to? Because everything else that was coming off the Hollywood line was peppy, and let's buy war bonds. By the way, this film does have at the end, please buy war bonds. So it's doing its duty. I would say was actually a timely and good choice to do this film for the Second World War era. In the middle of the war, where you didn't know how long it was going to take. Because it deals with mob mentality. So it is saying that you've got a bunch of people who are being told fake news. The farmer over there was killed. We must get up a posse and go after the people. Who did it? We don't know who they are or which way they went, but we're going. The sheriff's not in town, so the enraged populace goes to the local judge. The local judge says, I have no authority in matters of policing. I didn't use the word policing, but whatever that would be in the 1880s. But next to him sits the deputy sheriff, who had just been deputized, was just plain dude off the street, has been deputized by the sheriff because the sheriff had to go out of town. Later we find he was out of town to find the people who did stuff. Anyway, so the newly deputized sheriff, newly deputized deputy, not sheriff, who clearly doesn't have any policing background, is now confronted with the local populace saying, we must form a posse, but that means we all need to be deputized. I didn't know that. Apparently it does. I've never seen that in any Western I've ever watched, and I've watched a bunch. So apparently you need to be deputized. So the deputy deputizes everybody. Everybody! Including the woman on the horse that is coming riding, which I find interesting. And there's also a local clergyman, is a black guy. And I find that interesting. And there is a Mexican person who came in with the Major so-and-so. I don't know what all the backstories of all these people are and why they're there. But there were people of color at the frontier, so that is correct. As far as I know, but at the very least in 1942 they were putting them in. We know that in the 50s they were not putting them in. So this is still before that era of a total whiteout effectively. So the posse goes off, and our main characters, which is Henry Fonda and his friend, I believe it's Harry Morgan, that plays the friend, who's the guy who is the commander of the MASH 4077 for the last 6 seasons or something like that. The second commander of the MASH unit. So, but he's younger here, and they're buddies. I don't know what they do there. They've been out prospecting or whatever, and they're coming in. Our main guy, Henry Fonda, his name is Carter in this thing, is looking for his girl, Rose. That storyline goes absolutely nowhere, so they might as well have kept the whole storyline off, because you're thinking, we're now going to be watching a story about Carter and the buddy and where they're going. No, we're not. Because when these characters have been introduced as individuals, and now there's this posse that's happening, and there's a judge, and there's an old guy who's a little bit wise, etc., etc. And we've got, I was counting about 25 people that are going on horseback doing the posse. Great, fine. That the misgivings of Carter and his friend is like, should we do this? Should we not do this? So there are people who are in the area, but they're not necessarily townspeople. They're not invested in this whole thing, so I don't know why they're going. That's the problem with this film, is you don't know why people are doing what they're doing. But once they're there, they have to deal with it. And now we get to actually the meat and potatoes of the storytelling, which is the mob mentality. It's effectively, they're going to do a lynching. This was always the plan. And that's probably why Carter and his friend decided, let's just go with them. But what are you going to do? Say no? Okay, so then you say no. Well, they're going to lynch anyway. So I don't know what, other than that there are eyes and ears, I guess. Why? So, I do like looking at Henry Fonda. So in that sense, I'm not complaining. But why is my question. So then we meet up with some people who are in the area who've just bought a bunch of cows off the murdered rancher. And that is Dana Andrews as Donald Martin and Anthony Quinn as Juan Martínez, plus an old guy, yet another old guy. It looks like Donald Martin, let's call him Martin, is effectively the head of that outfit. Martínez doesn't seem to be speaking any English, and the old guy is too feeble and he's not so feeble, he's not super strong or anything, but he's definitely not, there's something about like a war PTSD kind of thing. So Martin effectively is just carrying these people, mentally carrying these people, and they are tending the cows and going to back to wherever they came from. This mob, including so it's not the judge, it's the major. Okay, Major Tetley. Yeah. So there's just too many people on. They're literally all in it, which sucks. Major Tetley. So the Major Tetley has taken charge, and everybody seems to be listening to him, which they have no reason to do so. He's got a son with him. I think his name was Peter. And the son is the little LGBTQ bubble in this film, because the Major refers to him as a female boy. So he's either calling him gay, or he's actually calling him like transgender kind of thing. It doesn't get explained, so we don't know. Use the headcanon that you like. But at any rate, it is clear that this is not the boy that he was trying to nurture into a man, and the boy is not happy either. There's a small moment between Peter and Martin, where there's like a little smile, so I thought maybe it's an LGBTQ, a gay vibe there, but I think it was more of the Peter was supposed to be that much younger. He was supposed to be maybe 16, because the guy who plays him is clearly 25 and cannot pass for anything younger than that. But I think the whole thing was supposed to be a friendly nod, but it gets a little charged if the boy is a 25-year-old. And then there's, of course, Anthony Quinn, who clearly does speak English. And turns out that his character, Juan Martínez, speaks 10 languages. So and was on the run for a completely different reason. Probably is cleverer than anybody else there. But even he can't save the situation, because now we have a situation which I didn't think it would look like that. If you have a posse, then you usually go bang, 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 and then they string them up and hang them from a tree or something. So I wasn't thinking in terms of a lynching that it would be like we caught the people, now we all sit around, deliberate, and then in all calmness we decide to lynch them. That is not really a thing I had ever considered. But guess what? That's what's happening right here. So that's a little odd. And then what's even weirder is that it does go in the wrong direction. So there's a vote called for. Is anybody who doesn't agree with dispensing justice as they see it right now, go stand over there. So that literally you're putting people on the spot. You're gonna have to stick out like a sore thumb in order to make your vote. And that's why votes are silent and private, because people can't tell the truth. They can't own up to what their actual conscience. Some people can, but a lot of them can't. So 7 out of what I estimate to be about 25 people, only one of which is a woman and one of which is debatable, 7 go stand there, including our Henry Fonda character, his friend, Peter, the young guy, the young, we don't know what gender person, and the old guy. So, and 1 or 2 others. You're already looking at those 7. 7 is a small number, and then let's call it 14, 15 other people. So they all decide that, that's not enough, so we're gonna lynch them. Let's now actively go do a lynching. So 2 things about that. 1, how mob mentality works, which is what I see in most of the reviews about this film, is it's about the mob mentality. And the other part that I have not seen reviewed is the dispensing of justice, the justice system. So in 12 Angry Men, we learned that you need to have all 12 jurors need to be in absolute agreement on whether this person is guilty or not guilty. What they're doing here is they're doing sort of like a democratic vote, and not a private one, as we've just discussed. But a democratic vote is a different thing. That is 51% means that you go with a yes, and you go with whatever comes out as dominant. That is significantly different from criminal justice, which needs to have 12 out of 12 jurors need to be in agreement with this. Otherwise you have a hung jury and you do a retrial, right?
Or you call the whole thing off.
Yes. These people clearly didn't know that, because what they're doing is a criminal justice decision right there and then. And they are also going to be the executioners. So it's effectively a crime, what they're doing. And at the end, when they meet up with the sheriff, and the sheriff says, who did it? And then the old man, who's the only one that anybody trusts at this point, for being impartial. He was in favor of not guilty, but he's considered to be the wisest person, I suppose. And the sheriff will listen to him and says, all but 7 are guilty. And that's interesting, because that's saying something about this mob mentality or about social pressure. Because, going back to the scene where they did that vote, 7 over there, the other ones over there, everybody decides, majority gets the vote, and therefore we string them up. But that also means that 7 people there who disagree with it are also going to string them up. And that's, I think, where social pressure it shows you that social pressure is too much, because really at this point those 7 people should have said, I am out, I do not agree with this. Or they could have even gone one step further. Instead of being part of it, they could have said, we're not part of it. And instead of we're not part of it, they could have actively stepped against it and said, we are taking these these prisoners, and we're taking them back to town.
They were in the minority.
They were in a minority. They were not going to go in because everybody was just as forceful as everybody else because they were a posse, because they were all able people to do the thing.
And armed.
And armed, except for the pastor, the preacher, who, and the old guy, the preacher and the old guy both didn't want a weapon. So yeah, I suppose they couldn't do what I would have preferred them to do, is like take the prisoners and go. So more active resistance, but they could have done passive resistance, as in, we will not be part of this. So I think that this film did need to be made in the 1940s, because what this film is saying, this is what happens when you start skipping points of justice, points of all the steps that we've put in place to make sure that there's a legal system and that everybody gets due process, that people are stop before they act, everybody deliberates, people need to be in the right amount of agreement. In this case, it would have had to be at least 95% agreement and not 51%.
And presided over by a judge.
Yes, you need the professionals who are trained to do this. And the first step was already a sign that everything was going to hell in a handbasket, because that deputy wasn't a proper deputy, because he was deputized, so he wasn't a trained deputy, and he deputizes people. So basically none of that was legal. They specifically said that it wasn't legal.
But they were doing it in front of a judge.
Yeah.
Then a judge should have called a stop to it at that point.
Yeah, so that's the question really, is did the fact that the judge was there and didn't speak up against it, does that mean that it was legal? I mean, we're frontier town, so...
Yeah, I think that's about as legal as you can get. The judge was there when you did it, and he didn't say no.
Yeah. Well, the judge, I'd have to go back and see if he actually didn't say no, but he did protest quite a bit. But it was, he did protest, and the deputy did it anyway. And everybody else said, took that oath.
If nobody listens to the judge, then the rule of law is gone.
Yeah. And it was completely gone. And then after that night, people are realizing they committed a crime and they killed people and they're going to go down hard. The sheriff said he's going to throw everything at them. And you have to, because if you got no justice at all, it's hopeless. And that was what was going on in Europe at the time, in mainland Europe, under the fascist regimes. So it is very timely, and it was important to say these things. I don't think that the American audience actually understood it. Certainly the critics didn't understand it, because they were like, why aren't you doing anything fluffy and positive and happy?
And singing.
Yes, and this movie will not make you feel cheery afterwards. No, that's the point. Henry Fonda was very proud of it. I don't think he had a huge role in the film, but it is certainly a film to be proud of. It's a very, very sad thing that it wasn't understood at the time. I doubt that it's still understood. Now it doesn't seem to be understood that it was relevant then, and then it wasn't understood at all, because people just didn't want to hear about it. They just wanted entertainment. And they made entertaining films so that afterwards and before it you could ask for war bonds. So, and war bonds were being sold by the millions. The guy who plays Donald Martin, I really liked him. His name is Dana Andrews. I don't know if I've seen him in other films. I'm certainly going to look him up. Of course, Anthony Quinn was, hey... awesome. But I really felt that most of the other actors were really worthwhile. The woman who plays the one, Jane Darwell, plays Ma Greer. She plays Ma in Grapes of Wrath with Henry Fonda, which is very cool. She's got a kick-ass role here. So cool. The other female role for Rose, why is Rose in it? Do tell me. I have no idea what's going on. It's just, that's even a sideline you shouldn't even, it's just, yeah. So it's really well worth seeing. There's a book, apparently. Go to, enjoy. Hopefully it'll tell you all the answers to the questions that I can't answer here. And yeah, and Henry Fonda is just adorable. So is Harry Morgan. We always knew this, but I had not seen him in a younger role before. So he's very lovely, and they're good buddies together. I would recommend watching. It's got a lot going for it. It's not a Western, it's a drama. And that's what some people were a little upset that I'm going to watch a Western. Guess what? It's not a Western. It is one of the favorite films of Clint Eastwood, if that's helpful. So that's all of that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it.